Bill Weber, head of Delaware MUFON chapter. Welcome to Nature of Reality Radio, and kudos to this lady Bambi who works for MUFON, not Bambi the deer, Bambi the one of the MUFON heads who worked on the 2018 MUFON conference in Cherry Hill, New Jersey, which I was at.
She works for Mainline MUFON, which does a lot of the PR work for MUFON Pennsylvania. So she does not work for MUFON. She works for the Mainline MUFON.
Oh, okay. She reached out to me a couple days ago, right before I was about to start contacting a whole slew of potential guests to come on as guests on my radio show, to ask them to come on, and as if the universe was looking out for me. That made my job a whole lot easier, and got her to reach out to me and suggest that I get all the people who are going to be speaking at the late April Philadelphia MUFON conference in Langhorne at the Bucks County Sheraton, which I missed last year but will be able to go to this year. And I noticed on the banner for that, I don't think your name is on it actually, so you may want to talk with the people there to make sure they upload the banner on the MUFONPA.com website to make sure that your name is actually included there if you're planning to do a presentation, because I just looked at that after I spoke to you earlier today on your cell phone, and I did not see your name there. But according to Bambi, you have when she described, put a dash next to your name when she listed you and the other people, and said Bill Weber deals with IFOs and other things. And well, that's just one of the things that we can talk about on this program. But before that, I want you to give your life story from a primary source perspective. Tell us anything and everything that you witnessed in your life that causes you to do the stuff that you do, what other positions you may have had in the UFO field before you became the Delaware MUFON chapter, and what you plan to do for the future. And I'm sure we'll discuss some future plans later on in this interview as well. But this is for the intro, so you got the floor. I will put myself on mute, and I promise not to interrupt you. Take as long as you need.
Well, I would expect that you would come back and fire some questions at me, but let me correct the record as far as what is. I'm not certain what is advertised on MUFON PA website with regards to the main conference speakers. It's true I am not speaking at the main conference. I am doing a presentation along with four other individuals for the field investigator training that is actually a free training that will occur on Friday, the first day of the conference. So I'll be in there doing a presentation along with my associates from Pennsylvania that will be doing their presentations as well as part of this training package. So, yeah, I just wanted to correct that no, I'm not speaking as at the conference. I have spoken in the past at the conference, and but for this particular date, I'll just be doing or involved in the field investigator training. Okay, where do we start? Always been interested in science and always been interested in ufology ever since I was a kid. What really, I guess, stuck to me was a wee bit of activity, UFO activity occurring in Exeter, New Hampshire in the mid-'60s. It interested me so much that I actually phoned up there to Exeter, New Hampshire. I was living in Jersey at the time, and in Middletown, and essentially I ended up chatting with the police officers that were at the scene, and I managed to get copies of the newspaper articles and such, where a lot of the folks in the town had seen this object which essentially was illuminating the general area in red light and such. And then coincidentally, along that same time frame, which again was in the mid-'60s, was the New York blackout, and also this object that crashed in Kecksburg, Pennsylvania during that same period of time. So that kind of sort of spurred my interest, and I was starting to get involved in reading everything I could on anything I could get my hands on. And in one publication that I read, I saw something about the Mutual UFO Network. And I just, figured, okay, there's a network out there. But again, this incident that spurred my interest occurred in '65. MUFON was not in existence at that time. There was a government agency called Project Blue Book that was investigating things at that time, and we, tongue-in-cheek, with quotes, say investigating. But when at 1969 they shut down, okay, and that was that for Project Blue Book. And coincidentally, that was the time that MUFON was established about 50 years ago, 1969. So where the Air Force dropped the ball, MUFON picked it up and continues to run with it. I guess I had that in mind, and at the time I didn't do anything with it as far as I just kept appraised of what was going on, read as much as I could, and so on. And then sometime back in, I guess it was around 70 or so, where I elected to elected to follow up more on MUFON, find out where they were. Now they had organization or headquarters set up in various areas in the country. When I joined them, they were located out in the Denver, Colorado area, but they've had offices in the greater Cincinnati airport, which, by the way, was where the series that was on History Channel came from, which was called Hangar One. That was a series that actually spoke to MUFON cases, real cases, not imagine if you would. These were real file cases and reports that came in, and they were highlighted on that particular channel for 2 seasons. MUFON's headquarters is now located in Irvine, California. A little bit about the organization. Anybody can join MUFON, and if you have an interest in the subject of ufology. And by joining MUFON, you're entitled to receive a journal every month that speaks about worldwide sightings, and it also has articles in there from published authors. That's very interesting. It's a very good piece of literature to pick up and at least be plugged into what's happening in the world, and this is offered monthly. So I became the journal subscriber, got the journal every month, and so on, and then it finally said, I'm going to get into this a little bit more. So I explored becoming an investigator, in which case then I had to purchase a manual, study it, and at the same time be prepared to take a test that was an open book test, but I still had to take the test, and then I became a field investigator trainee, where I was working in combination with a senior investigator or a state section director, which are the various functions within each state MUFON organization. So I worked along with that individual, and after I passed my test and had a number of cases under my belt, working collectively with them, and after a period of time, I guess it was felt that, hey, he knows the system, he knows how to handle the cases, he knows how to address several subjects and such. So we're going to promote him up and make him a certified field investigator, so that then, as cases were coming into the state, they would be assigned to me alone, and then I'd work those cases. So over the years, while working in Pennsylvania, I've handled over 100 plus cases, anything from observation of lights in the sky to and including a potential abduction scenario. Through the years, then I rose through the ranks from being a certified investigator up to, Pennsylvania, let me explain PA. PA was set up with, we have 67 counties in Pennsylvania, and it's a lot for the handful of investigators we had. We had about 18 investigators throughout the state. So the state was split up into sections, and each section represented a number of different counties. And so there was a senior type investigator who's been around a while, has quite a few more cases under their belts than I did. And they were promoted to be a state section director, where they had a team of investigators that worked under them, not for them, but under them. And this person also worked cases. So then the SSD now took on two roles. He wore two hats, or she wore two hats, where one hat was to do investigations and such, and the other hat was to provide support for the team of investigators, which included field investigator trainees, certified investigators, senior investigators, and such. So that person kind of sort of was responsible for supporting his or her own team within that area of counties. I was promoted up to SSD, and I covered multiple counties throughout the northeastern part, including Philadelphia of Pennsylvania. And did that for a while, supported a good team, ran some training programs for the field investigators under my watch, and we did very well. After a period of time then, I was approached and requested by others to throw my name in the hat because a position of chief investigator became available. So I threw my name in the hat, and then all the members within the state had an opportunity to vote for myself or other individuals that were running for that position. And fortunately, I was the one that was picked. So I then assumed the role of chief investigator, where I was responsible for all the SSDs and all of the counties within Pennsylvania. And because PA is so big, I had shared that responsibility with another individual who was based out toward Pittsburgh. And we worked together very, very well. Then there was some opportunities, again, that came up where people are moving up, where people are resigning, and which created other opportunities. And the one opportunity that came up was state director, that's in charge of the whole state and responsible for all of the people, as well as doing investigations themselves and supporting the chief investigator and all the state section directors and such, both setting action items and also responsible for trainings and such. So I've done that for a bit, and then I was approached by MUFON headquarters, the international director's name is Jan Harzan, who asked me if I would take a look at Delaware, because Delaware, with regards to or relation to Pennsylvania, Delaware has 3 counties and PA had 67. So, but as a result, Delaware wasn't getting enough attention. So I was asked to kind of sort of take that over. And in August of 17, I officially stepped down as state director from Pennsylvania and assumed the role in Delaware. And that's where I currently am right now, working together with my team down there. That consists of a number of field investigators. I have a chief investigator, and I also have a state section director for Newcastle County, Delaware. I'm looking to fill other areas like Kent County and Sussex County, but along with that, I'm learning the state as well. So, and to that end, I do programs down there. I do a monthly program that either I do my own presentations or I bring speakers in to talk. And also I provide movies every month. And this is done in a library, and my chapter function down there is open to the public. The main goal is to educate the folks in Delaware, to bring them up to speed to know that MUFON Delaware is alive and well. We have a chapter that's a very active chapter, and we also want to create a a path so that if anybody sees something, they can report it to MUFON and not have to worry about their identity being compromised, because we hold everybody's identity as sacred. So we don't go out and say, oh, Joe Blow that lives at this street and here's his phone number saw something. We don't do that. Okay, we maintain that person's anonymity. So that's what I'm doing. And as far as the subject matter, there's a lot of things that that MUFON covers, anything from lights in the sky to crop circles to animal mutilations to abductions and also landings and such. And we're all trained on how to deal with this stuff on investigation. Now, there are some affiliate organizations within MUFON. There are other teams within there that are somewhat specialized. One team is the STAR Team, and that stands for the Strike Team for Area Research. And when there's very important cases like a potential landing or an abduction or such, where entities are observed, STAR Team people are to go in and do that investigation typically, and they do go in there, and they're supposed to be dispatched within 24 hours of the actual report coming in. So they can go anywhere in the country, and some of these STAR Team members have various backgrounds that would lend themselves nicely to whether it's underwater observation or such. And there are tools provided like Geiger counters and such, and also means on how to protect the scene. And the idea behind the STAR Team is that we get in there first before the law enforcement or the military won't let us in at all, okay? There's another team within MUFON, which is called the ERT, and that stands for Experience or Research Team. And this team is made up of psychologists, psychiatrists, medical professionals who are involved with helping people that have been or feel they have been abducted. They go through a pretty good vetting scenario so that we can ascertain whether this person is telling the truth or he's making up stuff. And a normal field investigator, this is we could take that investigation to a certain point, but then at that level, we turn it over to the ERT, where they take control, and then our reports are concatenated together. And sometimes regression hypnosis sessions are involved in that particular, questioning and working with the witnesses and such. We also have a team called CAG, C-A-G, that stands for Case Assistance Group. And what they do is, well, as an example, Pennsylvania averages anywhere between 35 and 50 cases a month. And about 10 years ago, there was a major flap over here where there were like hundreds of cases coming in. And, you know, with so many investigators, everybody gets loaded down that they can't cover everything in a timely fashion. So we call on CAG to come in, and they provide investigators from all over the country to kind of sort of lend a hand and take over some of the investigations from us to free us up to focus on the load that we're currently carrying as well. So that works well, very well. We're a very organized organization, and everybody works together. That's the thing, and that's the key. You know, we support each other. I support Pennsylvania with their conference. I'm going to be here. They support me by their chief investigator has come down and spoken in Delaware for myself, and then I also work hand in hand with Connecticut MUFON as well. So that gives you a little bit of background. I guess I've presented my material at several of the conferences here in Philadelphia or in Bucks County. I've been on a couple of radio shows where I was a guest speaker. I've been on a MUFON television program out of Pittsburgh, and I've done presentations in Maryland, New York, New Jersey, and in Connecticut, where I physically have gone. And then also I presented for various groups like right here in Pennsylvania, in I guess, Delaware County, the Jewish War Veterans Administration or club or whatever. So I've gone down there and I've presented. And so if people want to know a little bit more about it, I have my own website down in Delaware. It's www.MUFON, as in David, as in Edward.com. And you can read a little bit about me and also some of the topics that I could present. If your organization would like to have somebody come in and speak to the subject, they can pick and choose and get in contact with myself. Pennsylvania also has a similar, so you can do the same there. I also have a Facebook page that tells of goings-on within the state of Delaware and such, and that is a simple MUFON space Delaware. So these are my arms to the outside world, and of course, my contact information is listed on all of the above. So I'll kick that back to you now and see if you have any other questions I can help you with.
Awesome. I did just go to the MUFON Delaware Facebook page and liked it. Happy to tell you that. It's the least I could do having you as a guest on my show last second. Kudos to Bambi for getting you on again last second. And very interesting story there. And I do have things to discuss, but I guess I might as well start off with the most controversial and hardest question of all that I could be asking you, that I always ask MUFON folks who come on my program. And that has to do with a couple of flaws dealing with MUFON. Hate to use that word, but lack of a better word, I use the word flaws. First flaw, there's two of them in particular, is that MUFON, according to some, has been infiltrated specifically by CIA and NSA forces to do things that, well, run counter to what MUFON stands for in terms of spreading the truth about UFOs. And of course, the ET UFO community is a place that is an easy target for disinformation and discrediting in the most ridiculous of ways. So have you noticed any infiltration that may have or attempted sabotage from your work as the Delaware director? And if so, now's your chance to blow the whistle on it.
Well, to be honest with you, there's no infiltration or such going on in Delaware. I can attest to that. I have had, in my presentations while I was in Pennsylvania, I have had audiences come and listen to what I have to speak about. And sometimes there are people in the crowd who challenge what I'm saying while I'm doing my presentation. And I kind of sort of say, yeah, I'll address their question, but I'll address it after my presentation. So, hang around and then we can get together and talk. And then, of course, when the presentation's over, they're nowhere to be found. So there's a potential so that people are attending our conferences and or local conferences and symposiums and such that basically they want to know what we want to know. And that's fine. I don't care. They don't bother me any. And, but as far as trying to derail MUFON's mission and mission statement, which is to try to understand what's going on for the benefit of humanity, I am not aware of any infiltration, and if there was, I certainly wouldn't promote it.
Thank you. And there was this, my God, I'm drawing a blank on his name, but this guy who speaks for Billy Meyer, the Swiss UFO contactee. He actually said something in one of his talks that I listened to. I think it was in California. He actually said that there is a rivalry of sorts developed between MUFON and Billy Meyer. Do you know anything about that? If you don't, we'll just go to another topic.
Well, myself, okay, first off, you have to be aware that for every bit of information that's out there on the internet, or you hear third party, there's an equal to or greater than amount of information that is what we consider disinformation. All right. And on some of my presentations, I've done a lot of research out there, and you open one door and then it leads to four more. But then over time, you develop this thing that I like to refer to as my BS to reality converter. Okay. And that comes with just being cognizant of what's being said out there. And typically, if somebody says to me, well, this guy's crazy, he's spouting lies and everything else, before I form an opinion, I'll go and research that person and see what he's saying. And then any opinion that is given is my opinion, not necessarily representing MUFON's opinion, but it's mine, all right? And you could take it or leave it for whatever it is. And if you disagree with what I say, then I encourage you to go out and do your own research and come up with your own decision on whether or not the thoughts that are being discussed are real or are they fake. Okay. As far as Billy Meyer, I have my doubts. That's as far as I'll take that. Okay. About the things that he said and so on and so forth. I have to learn a lot more about him and such. But there are people out there that are really, truly, for lack of a better definition, credible. And what they speak is, I take it to the bank.
Fair enough. And with that being said, the Hangar 1 series, you mentioned that. I was devastated when that show, and also UFO Hunters, was kicked off the History Channel. I did speak to Bill Burns when I had him as a guest on my show, as well as Kenneth Storch and also John Ventry. They all but acknowledged that the reasons that UFO Hunters and Hangar 1 were kicked off the air were because those shows were exposing a little too much information that certain powers that should not be did not want people to know about. And John Ventry always seems to hold a little bit of a grudge against Ancient Aliens because that show made the cut. Although I must say Ancient Aliens has been recently saying a lot of things that those same powers that be probably wouldn't want people to hear. So I can only cross my fingers and hope they don't get kicked off the air too. But I did try to warn people about this at the Cherry Hill MUFON Symposium, not the one in 2018, but the one, it was like 2014, 2015 that was in Cherry Hill. And I tried to warn them that you guys need to make sure that you don't, that you take great precautions to make sure the show doesn't get kicked off the air. And I'm not saying don't talk about certain things. By all means, expose what you can. But if someone tries to kick off the air, you got to fight back. And ultimately, History Channel is owned by Disney, which anybody who studies conspiracies knows would be a major Illuminati organization. And I tried to explain that. And one of the new people running Hangar 1, the new guy who replaced the old head of the program, he said, well, I work for Disney and they're great people. And I tried to explain to him, no, you don't understand. You were compartmentalized. You don't understand. There's Satanism and pedophilia going on at the high levels of Disney. And you're not meant to know about that. And I tried to warn them, and I was like, you got to make sure you take great precautions to make sure you don't get kicked off the air. And they were like, yeah, whatever you say, man. And well, the next thing I know, I find out the show eventually does get kicked off the air not too long after that. And I'm thinking, oh my God, I told you so. I told you so. So this whole thing about the shows getting kicked off the air, if you want to express your displeasure about it, now's your chance. And if you know anything about it regarding what they may have exposed, specific things that were driving the powers that be nuts and made them want to kick the show off the air, do you have anything to say about that?
Well, all I have to say is, I view some of them, and some of them I don't waste my time. I can say that I view the programming that's shown as Ancient Aliens. I view that just as entertainment, because I don't see any kind of proof or anything else that says this is what happened, as opposed to what was being given over at Hangar 1, all right, where we actually had evidence and so on and so forth to essentially make our point, where, people essentially are saying, well, we couldn't do it, so therefore it had to be aliens. Well, I have a hard time with that, okay? So I just view it as entertainment because there's nothing else on TV at the time. Sorry.
Fair enough, but it does kind of drive me crazy, though, that John Ventry, when he gives his presentations, he always seems to start them showing that cartoon of Giorgio Tsoukalos tied to a chair with a gray alien pointing at him saying, yo, buddy, stop making stuff up. I don't think the show deliberately wants to make stuff up as much as they are attempting to offer explanations for things that mainstream history doesn't seem to tell the whole story about. But although I want to make it clear, it really never ceases to disturb me, and I want it to stop, that people in the UFO, ET, and also even the spirituality, metaphysical fields to some extent, always seem to try to find some excuse to go against other people in those fields, and it makes it hard to find the truth when people go through infighting like that. And I did tell Georgia Tsoukalos about what John Ventry said when I ran into Giorgio at the Contact in the Desert conference, the last one, and Giorgio flat out told me I don't give a shit what John Ventry thinks about me, which I admire his or desire to not let other people say phase him. I don't want infighting,
right.
But anyhow,
right.
Let's move on to something.
But some of these shows, if I may interrupt, some of these shows tend to give ufology a bad name. Okay, where you get people that are, they twofold. Okay, you have these entertainment value television shows out there that was just mentioned, and also there are authors out there that, pick up a tidbit here, a tidbit there, and so on, and then they go and write books for their own benefit, and half of the stuff that's in these books hasn't been fact-checked or anything. They just say, well, this is vis-a-vis, I'll throw a name out, Billy Meyer. That's all I'm going to say, all right? Sorry.
All right. It's all right. It's cool. With that being said, let's go on to some other things. Now something more a little emotional. I see in the news article page on your MUFONDE.com site, you do mention Stanton Friedman, rest in peace. He was actually the third ever guest on my radio show. Definitely a great interview. He was actually a lot more spiritual than he led to believe in his presentations. That's what Kathleen Marden asserted. Although one flaw that he did have was he did push the theory that stars are powered by nuclear fusion, and that is one of the things that many people are coming out now saying that's one of the biggest lies in all of mainstream science. Stars are actually electromagnetic and or scalar energy to some degree, but Stanton being obsessed with nuclear physics, I'm sure he was a sucker. He actually said, I'm a sucker for nuclear fusion, and a couple of times, well, in a sense he was suckered into believing a nuclear fusion lie. Well, now that he's dead and on the other side, I'm sure he's learned all the truths to the things that he may have been mistaken about, but he was a great guy and opened up the door to a lot of things. So hey, what the hell, you said something about the about him on the news page, rest in peace and all. If you want to give a nice little 5-minute roast or something to Stan Freeman on this show, to give him some glory, by all means, here's your chance. Why don't you say something?
Well, I met Stan and we chatted. I met a lot of other people as well, and Stan is the real McCoy, all right? He's done a lot of work for the subject, and I respect him and I respect the work that he has done. I won't put him down. If people are confused or whatever about stars, just sit back and wait for Beetlejuice, because that one is looking like it's going to go any day or any month. And that should be something very interesting to the scientific community to watch one of the stars just go nova. But I'm just going to let him rest in peace. And I just, other than I respected him, I respected his work, and I had no reason to doubt what he was saying. And I'll kick it back to you.
Fair enough. Yeah, the thing about Betelgeuse going supernova, that star is over 300 light years from Earth. So if even if it went supernova today, it's going to take 300 years for the light to reach us. So although metaphysically speaking, if we see that in the sky, that would have to be something of huge significance, just like comets. The coming of a comet always seems to be something significant going on Earth, as history seems to suggest. But anyway, I digress. Moving on to some of the other subjects here. There was something I saw on the news page that I wanted to bring up. All right, well, actually, before I get to that, you do have a picture here on the MUFON D news page, solar wind. There seems to be a lot of talk about the solar wind of the sun affecting us on Earth. Recently, there seems to have been a lot of activity that I've been watching, a lot of recent videos talking about. Some might say this kind of falls out of the realm of MUFON, but I don't think it should, considering that people do spot a lot of UFOs through telescopes flying around the sun, things that could only be perceived as humongous biospheres, or if not spherical shaped, some other UFO craft. They can't, or even to that effect, they even see like giant living entities sucking off the sun like a leech. That's not really a UFO, but we don't know what it is, so I guess you could call it an unidentified living flying object. So you posted this picture here for a reason, so maybe you can get into why you decided to talk about that. Geomagnetic storms predicted. Do you know anything about these recent storms that I've referenced, and is there anything in the future about geomagnetic storms that you could tell us about?
Well, the sun is the actual dealer. Okay, you sit down at a card game. Who's going to deal the cards? Well, the sun is, and the sun is in complete control of these storms that it periodically spurts out there. Thank God for our atmosphere, or we wouldn't be here. Okay. And these storms do create havoc in our electromagnetic fields and such, affecting radio transmissions, affecting our satellite communications, and also in some areas affecting some of the power plants where you get blackouts and such as a function of the EMI coming in. All right. So, I haven't done any research on that. I see the same pictures that you see of an object sucking something out of the sun. But again, I have to dig into it more to fashion an opinion because, like I said, I haven't put that through my BS to reality converter yet. I'm aware of it. I see it, but I haven't really focused on it because I'm more focused on other things.
Well, if that's on your agenda, then it's not my job to change your idea. By all means, research what you got to do. Although it is an interesting idea when you opens up a whole can of worms to hear things like, well, maybe stars aren't powered by nuclear fusion. If that wasn't creepy enough, some have even said recently space is not even a vacuum. It's actually more of a plasma of some sort, a plasma that is basically an ocean that living creatures go in, just like the ocean on Earth. But again, that's not what mainstream science talks about. So,
but some of those things that, I'm sorry to break in, but some of those things that look interesting, okay, vis-a-vis, it interested you because you took a look at it. And if I see interesting articles like that out there, I definitely will put them on my Facebook page or my website to, again, as a function of educating the public. A lot of people don't know what's going on out there, so I try to pull people in and take a look at some of the stuff that's being posted there to enlighten them that this stuff is going on daily or weekly or monthly or whatever. Just like the whole field of ufology is changing, and a lot of people that before were, set in their way saying, yeah, that's, I got some property down the shore, but we can only see it at low tide, right? So with that being said, I'm trying to educate and make people go out and say, oh, I just saw this. Maybe I can dig into it a little bit more and learn some more about it, okay? So I'm trying to educate the folks down there, and anybody else that wants to visit my website or Facebook page, occasionally you'll see stuff out there. And you'll, if anything, it will generate a question in your own mind like, wow, I didn't know that. Maybe I should look into this.
Right. Down the news article page, Earth swallowed another planet, and maybe that's why life exists. I'm seeing here, you write, over 4.4 billion years ago, a Mars-sized body smashed into primitive Earth, launching our moon into permanent orbit around the Earth. Well, I don't know about that. It seems like some UFO researchers out there have said, well, what's the mother of all UFOs? It's staring us right at the face at night, and for that matter, even in the daytime sometimes. The moon. It's artificial. A giant artificial body. And the idea that it was created by Mars-sized body smashing into Earth is another mainstream science nonsense. So with all due respect, if that's the case, then, well, you may have inadvertently wrote disinformation here on your news article. But hey, all the more reason to bring it up in radio show conversation here to see if this new idea makes any sense to you. And, well, I could spend on and on giving the evidence that the moon is artificial. But hey, we've only got an hour here, and this is your time to have glory. So any comments?
No comment. No comment. Like I said, for every bit of information you find out there, there's a bit of disinformation. Okay? And I'll leave it at that.
All right. Well, the MUFON chapter head of Delaware sounds really interesting. Delaware, some might say it's the most boringest state of them all. I mean, it's the first state, thanks to Caesar Rodney riding on his horse and getting there before the Pennsylvania folks did. But okay, I'm digressing. The point is that Delaware, it's like, you've been to Delaware, whoop-de-doo. It's like nothing interesting. Well, you're probably trying to change that, I'm sure, suggesting that there is UFO activity that we should be paying attention to. But I mean, Pennsylvania and New Jersey seem to be hotspots, particularly Bucks County and southern New Jersey as well. I mean, I don't think UFO craft are really that concerned about state lines when they decide, okay, let's hover around the sky in this area for UFO nuts to look at and observe. So I don't think it's like when they're thinking, okay, we just crossed the Delaware state line. We're in the boringest state of them all, Delaware. Well, as far as percentages goes and the amount of craft that people see in Delaware, well, it's a small state, so the number can't be high, but I'm talking about density-wise. Number of UFO craft seen per square mile area. What would Delaware rank on the 50 state list to the best of your knowledge? Can you put a stat on that?
Okay. Well, we're obviously, we're not up there like California and other states, Pennsylvania, et cetera, where, you'll see an average, like I said, 35 to 50 UFO reports every month coming in, all right? California gets most of them, too. Texas is another one. The New Jersey, there's not that many. They're low on the list, too. They're in the middle of the pack between 1 and 50, okay? Delaware is probably closer down to the lower end, as is New Hampshire and Vermont and so on. The New England states, they're down there, too. And part of the issue, and this is one of the things that I myself are taking upon myself, is to educate the people down in Delaware, okay? Delaware is a happy little state. It has areas that people visit during the summertime and so on and so forth. I mean, at one point I used to think that Delaware is about as exciting as watching paint dry, okay? However, and I sat down and gave it a real good thought, and I'm thinking that people are seeing things. No matter where you are, people are seeing things, whether it's Delaware and New York or New Mexico or wherever. People see things in the sky. The problem is, A, to get them to come out and admit to somebody that they've seen it. B, they're very concerned on who they talk to because they don't want people alleging that they're crazy, okay? My neighbors think I'm crazy, but that's okay. They can think all they want. I know what I'm doing, and it satisfies myself, and that's the idea, and I do a lot of research on it. But am I going to lose sleep that my neighbor thinks I'm an idiot? Knock yourself out, But the thing is, the people see things. They don't know who to report them to, okay? And once they find out who to report them to, then you got to pry it out of them because, again, they fear their anonymity being, or their name, address, phone number, email, their kids, everything being exposed to everybody thinking that they're all crazy, all right? So now by doing this program, when I first started down there, okay, there was 3 people, period, end of discussion. I have a mailing list right now that contains over 60 names of people, and my group meetings that I had down there when I first came in was like, it was laughable, okay? But now I have a pretty decent turnout of people coming into our chapter meetings. Why? Because A, they're free. B, maybe it's because of snacks that are provided down there. You can get some chips or whatever, soda. And C, you're getting an education, all right? Whether it's a movie by a top speaker, whether it's a movie that features minutes and such from one of our MUFON Symposiums, whether it's a presentation that I've researched and done and presented to them. And then also we have experiencers down there, not necessarily abductees, but people who have seen something, and they're there to sort of help other people overcome their fears of what they've seen or their fears of being identified. So we're growing. We started off slow, and we're growing, and I'm pleased with the way we're doing it. And like I said earlier, we didn't have a website. We didn't have a Facebook page. We do now, and we're exploring other ways to get our name out there within the state. I have been approached by several organizations within the state of Delaware now that have heard of us and want me to come and present. And I'm dancing in the street because of that. That means I'm getting through to people. And then, you know, when people do come, and we have a core group that does come, I say, bring a friend with you. And then the next time that friend might bring another friend. And that's how you get the word out there. We're working with an observatory down there called Mount Cuba that people call them and they say, hey, we've seen something, but they don't know how to handle it. So we're working with them to say, hey, here are the people that you need to contact. There's the information. Get a hold of them and tell them what you saw, okay? So, you know, people can look at Delaware and say, oh, that's laughable. You know, that doesn't mean anything as compared to some of the larger states where they've been exposed to this type of information for a longer time, all right? People in Delaware just like to sit tight and do their own thing. They don't want to be bothered, or they don't want to be bothered on purpose because they don't want to report anything. That's my take on it, and I swear I'm going to alert that state until it's very proactive and has a lot more sightings coming in. We're starting to see some sightings now that are approaching sightings over nuclear plants, okay? And I'm in a process right now working one of those myself. So people are reporting things, and just sit back and sit tight because you'll see the numbers starting to grow for Delaware.
Yes, and as far as what we're seeing in the sky, I think we might as well ask you to talk about this in greater detail. Take as long as you need. We've got about 10 minutes left to talk about this. IFOs and other objects in the sky. That's what Bambi put next to your name when she listed you and the other people that she was willing to contact on my behalf. You included in that email she sent me. She wrote IFOs and other objects in the sky. Well, IFO, people have heard of USOs, and I guess IFOs, identified flying objects. So it's identified. Well, then again, I've heard Zechariah Sitchin say all UFOs are identified because the person controlling them has to know what they are. So therefore they're identified, but that doesn't really count in this regard. So
right.
The IFOs that you're referring to, why don't you elaborate on that? Because that's not really a term that people see much. Because what's the fun in IFO if you know what it is? But you can,
right. No, fair enough. And that, by the way, is what I'll be presenting at the training. My whole presentation is dealing with IFOs. Part of the problem is that somebody sees something in the sky, and immediately it's being diagnosed or there used to be a radio program or a TV program many moons ago. I'm a little older than you. You might not remember this. It was The Adventures of Superman, if you remember that. And it starts off the dialogue by saying, look, up in the sky, it's a bird, it's a plane, it's Superman, right? Well, today they use the same verbiage, except instead of saying Superman, they say it's a UFO, all right? And that can be further from the case because, like I said, 80% of the objects that are reported can be identified as something that's either man-made or natural, all right? It's the other 15% that we really don't know what it is. And a final disposition on a case investigation for those things are unknown. because we don't know what it is. But for the definition of IFO, or identified, I should just say IO, okay, identified objects, they break down into two separate categories. One is what I refer to as natural, and those things are stars, planets, bolides, meteorites, comets, the moon, believe it or not, moon dogs, sun dogs, bats, birds, and flying insects. They're all natural. The other section would be considered man-made, and those are airplanes, helicopters, drones, balloons, blimps, Chinese lanterns, LED kites, this new toy they got out called a rocket copter, satellites, actual satellite launches, the ISS, the International Space Station, and of course space debris. Now these are man-made objects, okay? So then I go into these things where people report something in the sky, and I've had photographs of people reporting, I give the case number, where people are reporting the moon as a UFO, all right? And again, in certain circumstances, it could be, you know, if you look quickly through a bunch of trees and stuff, there's a big bright light out there. They don't know what it is, and they indict it as a UFO. So that's what we talk about. And then we give examples of each one of those things so that people see, well, maybe this isn't. How many people know what a sun dog is? How many people know what a moon dog is? How many people know the difference between a meteor and a meteorite? Okay? There's not a lot of people that know that stuff. How many people have seen flying insects and immediately say, oh, this thing streaked like a bat out of you know where? Okay? It was a flying insect. That's what it was. And they show up. Not necessarily these lightning bugs and stuff, but these are other insects that get picked up. You'd be surprised at how many people see reflections in a glass if they look out a window and they see something, and what they're actually seeing is a reflection of their kitchen light in the window glass. And they say, oh, there's a UFO. So these are the things that I'm trying to point out to people so that when they look up in the sky, at least they're cognizant of the fact that it could be something other than, quote, the UFO. Did that make any sense to you?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, we don't want people thinking that UFOs are, well, out of this world and something far out when the explanation can easily be explained. I mean, David Icke, in a presentation that he's given on several occasions, has said that a lot of the UFOs we see may just be designed to confuse the issue and are just government-created craft that are designed to be put up there to make people think the ETs are here, the ETs are here, when it's really nothing of the sort. One other thing about UFOs, I guess this makes for great conversation. Stanton Friedman talked about this. He caused a little bit of controversy with his belief on this. He would say that, yeah, there's definitely the UFOs that are controlled by the government, but he was never of the opinion. He asserted that the UFOs in the government were controlled by military factions. His argument based on the idea that the UFOs, they would have been used in the wars if the military controlled them. But I myself and other people have gave a couple of rebuttals to that. Bill Burns and John Lear, when I interviewed them, they both said there was no reason to use UFOs in the wars. We didn't have to. You only need to go up a certain level of technology to decide the war. And well, there's more than enough other technology besides UFOs to win the war with. But I think that's not the primary reason they weren't used in the wars. I think the primary reason they weren't used in the wars was because the wars were all illusions. They were controlled by the same banking cartels and corporations on the same funding each sides of the war and controlling each sides of the war to get the outcome they wanted. Had any side of the war wanted to use a UFO to get an advantage, the wizard behind the curtain entities manipulating both sides would have come out from behind the curtain and said, you're not using these UFOs to get an advantage in this war, not with us manipulating it, you're not. So, and I think Stanton was failing to take that into account. So, for lack of a better question, do you agree or disagree with John Lear, Bill Burns, and I that the reason Stanton is mistaken about his claim that military didn't own UFOs because they would have used in the wars is because A, we didn't have to, and B, the powers that be controlled both sides and would never allow for that.
Well, that's interesting, and that's a whole nother subject that can be discussed for hours. I have heard of alleged reports during the Vietnam era war that UFOs were spotted, and that our PT boats, if you would, that were going up and down the river over there, were spotted by these things, and they fired on them, okay? And apparently, for lack of a better definition, these objects that they fired on kind of sort of put out a big catcher's mitt and caught all the rounds that they shot at them, turned them around and shot them right back at the people that were shooting at them, okay? Which is an interesting thought. And why would they even want to get involved with that stuff if they have the technology to get from their planet? And I'm going to emphasize the word planet, okay, because they could be us. They could be coming from us in the future. They could be coming from another dimension here on the planet. Okay, these are all things that are being kicked around out there now, where, you know, you'll see a fighter going over in, I think it was Turkey, went after one of these things, and I mean, he's going full burners, afterburners and such, and then all of a sudden this thing disappeared. What did it do? Just jump into another dimension? Where did he go? Okay, and these are reported, and this pilot has been interviewed and discussed this. Okay, like he was right on him, and then all of a sudden he was gone. Where did he go? Did he have a cloaking device? Nobody knows. Okay, so the idea that if they can get from A to B quickly and don't spend, 100,000 years to get here, leads one to think about A, are they based here? Are some of the craft that we're seeing, are they theirs? And where are they coming from within our own planet? Because of the school of thought that, they've been here for hundreds of thousands of years, vis-a-vis Sitchin again, right? Or they have technology so far advanced, like to them, we look like we're just playing with cat guns over here, where they're playing with nuclear missiles and such. That's an analogy, but to show the difference, and the reason, perhaps, that they don't want to be bothered with us. We could be an experiment of theirs. We could come from them, or they're interested in the assets we have in this planet, and they won't let us destroy them because they have an interest in them. All of these things come out, and each one of them is debatable, going back and forth, because there really isn't any smoking gun to go out and say that, okay? It's all supposition. And that's what MUFON is trying to do. It's trying to find the smoking gun, something to say, see, this is what you were saying, this is what we're saying, and here's the proof that what we're saying is what was really going on, all right? And that's why we depend on the public in general, not the scientists, not the, the authors out there, but the public in general to come forward and tell us what they're seeing. Because this way we can monitor what's being seen and we can see transition. I mean, we have files, MUFON has files that go back to 1898, all right? And the numbers that I quoted you of 106,000 sighting reports, that was just since 1995. So you can imagine that there's a lot of stuff going on out there. And we want to know what it is. And the only way to do that is through the public, because these are the ones that have, the cell phones. They could take pictures. There's a lot more of them running around than perhaps the aliens, but it could be reversed. You don't know. If you think about some of the theories that Dr. David Jacobs has, that there's hybrids running around, okay? So think about all of that, and then, you worry about well, is it this or is it that? You can't prove one or the other if you think about it. Does that make any sense to you?
Absolutely. I don't think you could have explained it any better than you did. So, well said. And, we reached 7 o'clock, so I guess I'll let you finish up this this show by getting out anything you like, talk about your future plans, and specifically the conference in April. I just checked the schedule on that. 1 o'clock on the Friday that it starts is the workshop thing that you say you're going to be part in, and also says plus astronomy. And the interesting thing is the word free is in quotation marks there. I seem to recall the last few times this conference happened, and there was something like early in the day on the first day that you actually had to pay a separate fee, but that does not appear to be the case this time. And this is actually the earliest it's ever started. I believe it's always been like at least 4 o'clock in the afternoon when these 2-day conferences that start on Fridays, MUFON based, have gone. So I think I'm going to have to call out of work early to show up for that. So I'm sure you will. So why don't you tell us what that's all about, your future plans, and your contact info, your site, and we'll leave it at that.
Okay, fair enough. Yeah, the conference is going to be running from the 24th to the 25th, and essentially the first 5-6 hours of the conference are going to be free, and it's the FI training. It's involved with working with the existing field investigators that are in multiple states. If they come out, they can attend this and maybe add this little bit of material that's being presented to their notes or whatever that they use when they do their investigations. Just something, for my own particular thing, it's just something to think about before we go charging off thinking, UFOs and such. Other topics that are going to be presented, I think, are well worth the while to come down and listen to. It doesn't cost you anything, so why not go for it, right? The symposium is coming up, and that's going to be in July out in Las Vegas. There is a fee attached to that to get in, but these are bringing in worldwide speakers as well, okay? So there might be some activity or presentations that might interest you, that maybe it's worthwhile for you to start saving your pennies between now and July and come on out to Las Vegas. On a local scene in Delaware, I'll be doing a presentation March the 1st, which is a Sunday, and it runs from about 2 o'clock until 4 o'clock, and it's at a public library. It's open to the public, and there is no charge to get in. That, too, is free. And this particular March 1st date, I will be doing a presentation/movie by Dr. David Jacobs, who is involved in regression hypnosis and such. And he's going to talk about abductions, abductees, and hybrids. So that might be an interesting subject to come and listen to if you're in and around the Wilmington, Delaware area. Both of these things that I'm doing are going to be shown in on our Facebook page, which is just MUFON Space Delaware, as well as on my website, which is www.MUFON, D as in David, E as in Edward.com. Come visit, take a look. Any questions, please put them on the Facebook page or phone me, email me, all of that's there. And then we can pick up the ball and run with it. I hate like heck for you to walk away from any session or radio program, whatever, with questions. I'd rather give you the answers that you're looking for, if the best I can, and I'm sure that Andrew can too. So we'll have to, play that by ear. But you're certainly invited to attend, and I appreciate the opportunity to present tonight. It was pretty quick, but I did have some material that I'm going to be using within the next couple of weeks, so that worked out well. So I'll kick it right back over to you, sir.
Thank you very much. And that being said, I'll bring this show to an end. Thank you very much for coming on. I will get this show uploaded to YouTube. Hopefully by midnight tomorrow, I'll send you the link after it's done if you want to promote this and all. So hope to see you at the conference. Best of luck there and all the other things that you're doing. Have a great night. Have a great career, and good luck in your future UFO endeavors and all the rest of it. Take care.
Oh, one other thing. Let me, yes. If I can interject. One other thing.
Sure.
MUFON is an all-volunteer organization. No one, including myself, does not get paid. Okay? We're in this to try to figure out what it is out there that people are seeing. And my own personal driving forces to really dig into it and research it out to see myself what's going on. But I just want to let everybody know this is all voluntary, all the way up through headquarters. There's only 2 people in MUFON that get paid, and that's it. Everybody else is all volunteer, all right? So the time we spend is because we love the subject of ufology and we want to find the answers. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, and hopefully we'll get answers besides just nuts and bolts, because UFOs aren't just nuts and bolts. There's a lot more to it, and I'm seeing a lot, and I'm glad that a lot of people in the UFO field are willing to go past the nuts and bolts aspect to find the truth. So I encourage you to do that, and everyone else that works with you as well. And good luck.
Thank you.
Take care. Bye.
Thank you.